Delete, I whisper, my finger hovering over the screen. Mom's message glares back at me. We don't need this. We need you to help your family. The clock reads 3:17 a.m. I've spent the entire night researching gambling addiction resources instead of sleeping, and this is the thanks I get. My apartment feels too quiet, too empty after the storm of emotions I've weathered these past few months. From my window, I can see the first hint of dawn breaking over the cityscape. The same sun will rise over my parents' house, now mortgaged to the hilt because of my sister and her husband's gambling addiction. I hit delete. For the first time in my life, I choose myself over the tidal wave of guilt that has defined my relationship with my family. It shouldn't be this hard to do the right thing. But when you've spent 32 years being the responsible one, the reliable one, the ATM with legs, the guilt doesn't disappear overnight. I think back to that Christmas dinner 3 months ago, the moment everything shattered, and wonder how we got here. Flashback. The beginning, 2 years ago, when the email announcing my promotion arrived, I practically danced around my office. Senior accountant at Wilson and Bryce was not just a title, it was validation. The salary bump from $75,000 to $120,000 meant I could finally breathe, pay my mortgage, live comfortably, and help my parents. Michelle, honey, you don't have to do this, Mom said when I first told her about setting up the monthly transfers. Mom, I want to, I replied, already pulling out my phone to set up the automatic payment of $1,500 in my banking app. I'm making good money now, and I want to help. Dad stood there, his eyes glistening with what I thought was gratitude. We raised a good one, Sarah, he said to Mom, putting his arm around her shoulders. I didn't see the expectation taking root in that moment. How could I? I was too busy feeling like I'd finally become the daughter they deserved. Growing up in our small town, I'd watched them sacrifice everything for our education, Dad taking double shifts at the insurance company, Mom grading papers late into the night after teaching all day. They'd made me who I was. This was the least I could do. Those first few months were heartwarming. Every time the money hit their account, they'd call to thank me. Mom would go on about how lucky they were to have such a thoughtful daughter, and Dad would crack jokes about having a sugar daughter instead of a sugar daddy. But you know how they say no good deed goes unpunished? I was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Flashback. The chef, Michelle, sweetie, Mom called one Tuesday afternoon while I was buried in tax reports. Our coffee maker just broke down. You wouldn't believe the noise it made. We were wondering if you could help us get a new one. Of course, I said. It was just a coffee maker, right? But then came the iron. And after that, the washing machine, the lawn mower, the patio furniture. Each request bigger than the last, each one accompanied by increasingly elaborate stories about why they needed it right now. The thank you calls had stopped entirely. My generosity had transformed from gift to expectation. I remember staring at my bank statement one night, calculating how much I'd spent on them in just 6 months. Nearly $15,000, not counting the monthly transfers. That was more than most people their age received from Social Security in a year. I still remember the day I finally spoke up. I had just finished a particularly stressful week at work, and Mom called about wanting a new smart TV. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice gentle, I need you to understand something. I'm not printing money in my basement. I'm earning it, and while I love helping you guys, I think we need to slow down with the purchases. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I see, Mom finally said, her voice ice cold. Well, I wouldn't want to burden you with our needs. The line went dead before I could respond. Growing up, Mom had always been like this, a former elementary school teacher who ran our home with the same exacting standards she applied to her classroom. Dad, the perpetual peacekeeper, had always deferred to her stronger personality. As the youngest of 5 brothers, he'd spent his life taking the path of least resistance. The silence that followed was unlike anything I'd experienced with my family before. Weeks passed without a single call or message. The traditional Sunday dinners suddenly stopped, and my invitations went unanswered. Flashback. The sister. You won't believe this, Amy said during one of our phone calls, barely containing her laughter. Mom and Dad are acting like you've committed some terrible crime. They keep going on about how you abandoned them just because you wouldn't buy them a TV. Amy, at 27, had just gotten married to her longtime boyfriend, James, in a beautiful ceremony that I'd helped pay for. As different as we were, me, the serious accountant, her, the vibrant elementary school teacher, we'd always been close. Are you serious? I couldn't help but laugh too. A TV? You'd think I'd refuse to donate them a kidney or something. I know, right? But you know how they can be. Remember when I didn't call them for 3 days during my honeymoon? Mom acted like I'd moved to Mars. What I didn't know then was that Amy was hiding her own secrets. Behind her perfect marriage and job was a woman desperately trying to cover for a husband whose gambling addiction was spiraling out of control. Later, I learned that James' charming exterior masked a man whose wealthy but emotionally distant parents had taught him to solve problems by throwing money at them, money he didn't have. Flashback. The reconciliation. As Thanksgiving approached, I decided enough was enough. Armed with homemade apple pie, Dad's favorite, and carefully chosen gifts, I showed up at their doorstep unannounced. The moment Mom opened the door, I saw the conflict in her eyes, the lingering hurt battling with the natural instinct to welcome her daughter home. Dad appeared behind her, and after a moment's hesitation, they let me in. Amy and James were already there, sitting in the living room, and the atmosphere was tense for about 5 minutes before the familiar warmth of family started seeping back in. Over turkey and stuffing, Dad cleared his throat and dropped what seemed like an exciting bomb. We've been thinking, he said, looking around the table. What if we all went to Europe early next year? Germany, specifically, after Christmas. Mom's eyes lit up. Oh yes, we've been planning it with Amy and James. Michelle, you should come too. It would be wonderful to have the whole family together. I sat there, fork midway to my mouth, considering the idea. A family trip to Europe, despite our recent discord, the thought was appealing. After a couple of minutes of mental calendar checking, I nodded. You know what? That sounds great. I could use a vacation. What I didn't see was the knowing glance that passed between them, the subtle nod from Amy to Mom. I was so eager to belong again, to feel that familial warmth, that I missed all the warning signs. Flashback. The Christmas disaster. December arrived with a blanket of snow and the promise of holiday cheer. I spent weekends shopping for Christmas presents, determined to make this year special. For Mom, I bought an expensive cashmere sweater she'd been eyeing. Dad got the latest model of his favorite smartwatch. For Amy and James, I picked out a high-end coffee machine for their new house. When Christmas Eve arrived, I took a taxi to my parents' house, my arms loaded with carefully wrapped packages. The house looked festive, with twinkling lights outlining the windows and a wreath on the door. Merry Christmas. Mom greeted me with a hug that felt almost like old times. The gift exchange started well enough. My presents were met with excitement and appreciation, though I couldn't help but notice their gifts to me seemed hastily chosen. A generic scarf and a gift card to a store I rarely visited. After a few glasses of wine with dinner, the atmosphere shifted. Mom kept exchanging meaningful glances with Dad, while Amy and James seemed unusually interested in their plates. So, Michelle, Mom finally said, her voice carrying that sweet tone she usually reserved for asking favors. We've been discussing the Europe trip. We found this amazing package deal for all 5 of us. I nodded, waiting for more information about the itinerary. What came next hit me like a bucket of ice water. Since you're doing so well at work, Mom continued, her voice still syrupy sweet. We thought it would make sense for you to cover the trip expenses for everyone. The wine glass froze halfway to my lips. I'm sorry, what? Well, honey, Dad jumped in. You make good money now, much more than Amy and James, and your mother and I are retired. Are you seriously asking me to pay for a European vacation for 5 people? I set my glass down too forcefully, red wine sloshing dangerously close to the rim. Not asking, dear, Mom corrected. We've already decided this is how it should be. You can afford it. I looked at Amy, expecting her to back me up, to point out how absurd this was. Instead, she gave me a small shrug. We did discuss this, she said. It makes the most sense. Michelle, you're the one with the big salary. A memory flashed through my mind. 10-year-old Amy crying because I'd gotten the lead in the school play while she was cast as a tree. Mom comforting her, saying, Michelle just got lucky this time. Next time will be your turn. It had always been like that, Amy, the favored one. Me, the one expected to understand, to give in, to be mature. This is insane, I said, pushing my hair back from my face. I'm happy to pay for my own trip, but I'm not bankrolling a European vacation for the whole family. Do you have any idea how much that would cost? Don't be selfish, Michelle, Mom snapped, her sweet tone evaporating. After everything we've done for you. Selfish? I laughed in disbelief. I've been sending you $1,500 every month for 2 years. I helped pay for Amy's wedding. I bought you every appliance you asked for. How does that make me selfish? The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Mom stood up, her face flushed with anger, or wine, probably both. If you won't help your family have this experience together, then you can leave, she said, pointing at the door. We don't need selfish people at our Christmas celebration. I looked at Dad, but he just nodded in agreement. Your mother's right. If you won't contribute to this family properly, maybe it's better if you go. Amy and James sat there, silent supporters of this madness. The betrayal stung worse than the harsh words. The taxi ride home that Christmas night was a blur of tears and anger. By the time I reached my apartment, I'd made up my mind. With shaking hands, I opened my banking app and canceled the monthly transfers to Mom's account. Then I sent her a simple message. Monthly transfers canceled. Merry Christmas. Her response came almost immediately. This just proves what we already knew. You're selfish and greedy. Don't bother contacting us anymore. Flashback, the liberation. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. I opened my laptop and started searching for vacation packages, not to Germany, but to Hawaii. Within hours, I had booked a 2-week stay at a beautiful beachfront resort for February. If I'm going to spend thousands of dollars on a vacation, I muttered to myself, it's going to be on my own terms. The weeks that followed were eerily quiet. No calls from Mom or Dad. No texts from Amy. I threw myself into work and planning my solo trip. I avoided social media, knowing I'd probably see updates about their European adventure. February arrived, and one day curiosity got the better of me. I checked Amy's Instagram. There they were, photos of them all in Germany, posing in front of famous landmarks, eating at beer gardens. They looked happy, and I felt a complicated mix of hurt and relief that I wasn't there. While they were posting pictures from Munich and Berlin, I was boarding a plane to Honolulu. The moment I stepped onto the Hawaiian beach, felt the warm sand between my toes, and breathed in the salty air, I knew I'd made the right choice. You seem like you're carrying a weight off your shoulders, said Lisa, a woman I'd met at the resort's yoga class. Whatever you left behind, it was the right choice. She had no idea how right she was. Flashback, the revelation. Life has a funny way of testing your resolve just when you think you've finally found your peace. I had been back from Hawaii for about a month when my phone rang one Wednesday evening. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it for a long moment, debating whether to answer. We hadn't spoken since that disastrous Christmas dinner, but curiosity made me pick up. Hello. I tried to keep my voice neutral. Michelle, Mom's voice sounded different, strained, desperate. We need you to come over, please. Mom, I don't think that's a good idea. Please, she repeated, and I heard something I'd never heard in my mother's voice before. Fear. We need to talk to you in person. It's important. I should have said no. Instead, I heard myself saying, I'll be there in 30 minutes. When I pulled into their driveway, I noticed their house looked different. The usually well-maintained garden was overgrown, and Dad's prized car was missing from its usual spot. Mom opened the door before I could knock. She looked older somehow, worn down. Dad sat in his armchair in the living room, staring at nothing in particular. What's going on? I asked, remaining standing. Where's your car? Dad finally looked at me, his face haggard. We had to sell it. Sell it? Why? Mom burst into tears. It's Amy and James. When we were in Germany, they went to a casino. They took my credit card. We thought they were just going sightseeing, but they went to the casino and spent almost $50,000 in 2 days. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. $50,000? How is that even possible? Mom whispered, credit card limit plus cash advances. We, we didn't even know until we got back and the bank statement came. But that's fraud, I said. You can dispute the charges. No, we can't, Dad said heavily. We had given Amy permission to use the card for emergencies. And, and there's more. The next half hour was like watching a horror movie unfold. My parents took turns explaining how they discovered that James had a gambling addiction, something Amy had known about but kept secret from the family for years. Worse, he had apparently introduced Amy to gambling, and she had developed her own addiction. She seemed so happy, Mom said, twisting a tissue in her hands. All those years with James. We thought they were perfect together. We had no idea. James lost his job, Dad added. His company found out about his gambling. They fired him immediately. Now they're both struggling. I sat there trying to process it all. My sister, practical, sensible Amy, was a gambling addict. The same sister who had sided with our parents in demanding I pay for their European vacation was now drowning in debt. Why are you telling me all this? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Mom leaned forward, her eyes pleading. Michelle, honey, we need help. The bank wants their money. We're retired. We don't have that kind of. No. The word came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't soften it. Absolutely not, but we're your parents. Mom's voice rose. You have to help us. Have to? Like I had to pay for everyone's European vacation, the same vacation where Amy and James stole $50,000 from you? We were just joking about the vacation, Mom said quickly. We didn't mean those things we said at Christmas. You know we love you. Love me? You kicked me out of Christmas dinner because I wouldn't bankroll your vacation. You called me selfish and greedy. You cut off all contact with me. And now you want me to bail you out? Your sister needs help, Dad said quietly. She's family. Where was this family loyalty when you were all ganging up on me at Christmas? Where was it when Amy sat there silently while you kicked me out? Why is it only family when you need something from me? Present day, the resolution. The memory of that night still stings as I watch the sun rise from my apartment window. The weeks that followed were a storm of missed calls, desperate voicemails, and emotional manipulation attempts. Amy tried creating new numbers to contact me after I blocked her. Mom enlisted relatives to plead on their behalf. Dad even showed up at my workplace one day. Then one evening, I received an unexpected visit from James' sister, Melissa. A psychiatric nurse with a direct manner, she confirmed what I suspected. James' gambling wasn't new, and his family had enabled him for years, just as mine was trying to do now. I want you to know you're right, she said, sitting on my couch, about not helping them. James has been struggling with gambling since college. Our parents bailed him out countless times, and it never helped. It just enabled him to keep going. So last night, I researched gambling addiction support groups and treatment centers. I compiled all the information into an email and sent it to my parents, Amy and James. I included contact information for financial advisors who specialize in debt management and bankruptcy law. And now, as I watch Mom's angry response disappear from my screen, I feel a strange mix of sadness and peace. This isn't the ending I would have chosen for my family. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to stop protecting people from the consequences of their actions. A year from now, I'll hear that my parents have downsized to a smaller house and taken part-time jobs. Amy and James will file for bankruptcy, lose their house, and finally agree to attend Gamblers Anonymous meetings. And me? I'll continue building my life, brick by careful brick, on the solid foundation of knowing that I can love my family without being responsible for them. That I am more than an ATM with legs. That the money I once sent to my parents now goes into my own retirement account and a charity that helps families affected by gambling addiction. Because sometimes the best way to help others is to make sure you're standing on solid ground yourself.